The air was thick with salt and the echoes of ancient battles, the dim light of dawn casting its gentle glow upon the weary shores of Ithaca, longed for by its champion, Odysseus. Having laid waste to the mighty walls of Troy, the cunning hero found himself facing an even greater foe, one that lived beneath the churning waves and commanded storms with a flick of his magisterial hand. Yet it was not the enemy blades or the roar of defiance that fueled his foes. It was a more insidious force, a tempest born of hubris, rising from the depths of Poseidon's wrath. As the sun rose over the horizon whispered promises of both home and heartache, painting the sky with hues of orange and purple, suggesting myriad adventures ahead yet unseen. Odysseus dreamed of sweet reunions, of warm fires and stories shared beneath the watchful gaze of the stars, but ere he could hear the laughter of Penelope or smell the fresh bread baking in his hearth, a storm brewed not on the horizon, but within the depths of a vengeful ocean. Get comfortable and let the day fall away, allowing your breath to find a soothing rhythm, as if the gentle lapping of the waves were yours alone, steady and calming. Feel the weight of your day melt like the last traces of sunlight retreating behind the hills. As you settle into this moment, this tale suspended between longing and despair. The shores of Ithaca beckoned to him like a familiar tune, a melody entwined with the scent of blooming olive trees and the distant smoke of hearths preparing meals for loved ones. Yet as Odysseus stood peering out towards the endless expanse of the ocean, an unease wrapped itself around his heart. The waters appeared eerily placid, and yet, like a serpent coiled, they tinged with warning. With every step he took back towards his ship, every whisper of his name carried on the wind felt like an echo of his sleeping heart, a heart still partly consumed by the fires of glory and pride. I am Odysseus, he had proclaimed, loud and fearless in the throes of triumph. But those words, so laden with arrogance, now hung heavy in the salty air, awakening a guardian of the seas who had long been waiting for a chance to reclaim his honor. Poseidon, king of the seas, stirred in his darkened hall within the depths, where shadows danced like fleeting phantoms around his throne of coral and pearl. He was not just a god of the waves, but one of deep emotion, betrayed by Odysseus's boastful tongue. The traveler's journey home became a very personal offense against the ocean's deepest secrets. Odysseus had dared to claim victory, not just over the mortal inhabitants of Troy, but dared to flaunt it before the very deity who shaped the tides. The waves began to surge under Poseidon's ire, gathering strength and fury, summoning up the wild winds that roamed the ocean like restless spirits. Each gust carried the scent of brine and fury, whispering to Odysseus that solace and home were still distant dreams. But oh, the tales woven into this journey would mirror the vast tapestry of the stars, each trial intricately painted with lessons of humility and reflection. As he set forth upon the waves, the ship creaked and groaned, a regurgitation of wood and memories, old and new. His loyal companions gathered about him, men rugged and brave, shadows of their former selves after years of siege and bloodshed. With the mast rising against the sky, they embarked on what would unknowingly become a long Odyssey, one tangled in fate's cruel hand and the whims of a god whose favor they had all but forsaken. The sea was vast, a seemingly endless expanse of possibility and peril. And as their oars dipped into the water, a chorus of rhythm emerged, a heartbeat that synchronized with the pulse of the ocean itself. Each stroke of the oars was a promise and a prayer, a wish sent forth mingling with the salt in the air. It was then that Odysseus took a moment to breathe, to connect with the pulse of his beloved homeland and the journey that lay ahead. But the calmness was but a fleeting illusion. A thick fog clad the ship in a disorienting haze, swallowing the light and weaving shadows that made the wooden vessel feel adrift, alone in a maddening world. The sun's warmth dissipated, leaving them adrift in a chilling embrace of uncertainty. With each passing moment, shadows loomed larger, not just upon the waters, but within the heart of Odysseus himself. What man could tread upon the edge of divinity without consequence? What hero could stand tall against a god without feeling the sharp edge of reverence cut deep into their pride? Then came the voice of Poseidon, whispering through the crests of angry waves, each syllable a challenge, each swell a testament to the interminable endurance hidden beneath the surface. Foul boasts shall be answered. The waters seemed to sing, crashing ferociously against the ship. The winds howled with the fury of the god's spirit, tossing the vessels upon the swells like mere playthings. And as the darkness encroached, Odysseus felt the weight of fate pressing upon his shoulders, a reminder that pride was often a fool's crown, heavy and burdensome. So began Odysseus's trial, the journey in pursuit of redemption and reunion, fraught with encounters that would test not only his cunning, but the very essence of his soul. The waves swelled, bearing witness to the gravity of a world both beautiful and fierce, where the line between life and death danced tantalizingly close. He was not merely a wanderer. He was the embodiment of humanity's struggle against hubris, a seeker of wisdom amidst a tempest of chaos. As the ship crested over a swell, the sun found its way again, breaking through the shrouded skies, casting beams that glimmered like shards of hope, illuminating the churning waters around them. Hope, that precious ember flickering in the heart of darkness, was all they had as they plunged headlong into the storm that awaited beyond the horizon. For now, they sailed into unknown depths, and the tapestry of Odysseus' journey unfurled, rich with despair and beauty, entwined like the threads of a grand myth woven into the very fabric of existence itself. In the quiet shudders of dawn, the winds whispered through the remnants of Troy, wraps of smoke curling into the sky like the last breath of a dying ember. The sun, a pale orb, rose reluctantly, casting a muted light over the battered ruins of the great city, remnants of a war that had scarred the land and woven the fates of men in an intricate tapestry of glory and despair. Amongst the wreckage, the echoes of laughter, shouts, and cries, once vibrant reflections of both triumph and sorrow, now lingered like fleeting shadows. It was in this somber aftermath that Odysseus, the crafty king of Ithaca, stood, wrestling with the potent mixture of relief and weariness swirling in his heart. As he gazed over the horizon, the fields once painted with the colors of vibrant life had turned to shades of ash and dust, a landscape marked by the heavy weight of fate's cruel hand. Every stone, every fragment of wood carried stories, whispers of the valiant heroes who had fought, the loved ones left behind, and countless lives intertwined by the tapestry of war. Odysseus felt the ache of their collective memory within him, a bittersweet reminder that glory often walks hand in hand with sacrifice. He inhaled deeply, savoring the briny scent of the sea rising from the distant shores, a promise of home, of solace waiting just beyond the horizon. His heart quickened as he recalled the tales of old, the gales and whirlpools, the monsters lurking beneath the waves, and the dreams of return that had propelled many weary souls. A deep-seated desire coursed through him. It was more than just the call of home. It was the lure of adventure, the challenge that thrived in his veins like a primal fire. But as Odysseus prepared to set sail with the remaining warriors, triumphant yet humbled, his thoughts traveled beyond himself, and arrogance crested within him like a tidal wave. "Let the fame of my cunning spread throughout over the world," he proclaimed, raising his voice above the chorus of preparations around him. "For none among the Greeks have bested me in wits or valor. Let word reach the far corners of the earth, from the towering Olympus to the humblest of valleys. No man shall challenge me." The words fell from his lips, arrogantly striking the air with the violent force of a thunderclap, reverberating against the ruins of Troy as if summoning ancient spirits that strolled the shores. Without realizing it, he had cast a challenge not just to those who might hear, but to Poseidon himself, the Lord of the Seas, whose fury had often been as deep as the waters he reigned over. And at that moment, far beneath the roiling waters, in the depths of his darkened realm, Poseidon stirred. The waves began to churn restlessly, a brewing storm mirror to the tempest now ignited in the heart of the sea god. The wind shrieked an ominous warning, the surf pounding against the coastline, while the sun slipped further behind a shroud of ominous clouds gathering overhead. How dare a mortal raise his voice in such pride in the face of a deity? The ocean surged, and the sea god's wrath threatened to break the very bounds of reason itself. With a roar reminiscent of the crashing waves, Poseidon vowed to unleash a calamity upon Odysseus, to transform his path home into harrowing trials that would test even the greatest of heroes. As the Greek fleet gathered along the sandy shore, the men readied their ships, the mahogany hulls gleaming against the darkening expanse of the sea. The crew's laughter intertwined with the sounds of waves lapping gently against the ships, mingling with the scent of salt and damp earth, a stark contrast to the bitterness of ash swirling in the air. With great reverence, they approached the vessels that had witnessed the trials of Trojan warfare, each timber a silent reminder of sacrifice, 1,000 oaths and glories drifting away into memory. In the sudden tempest of Poseidon's anger, the calm before the storm was deceptive. Naught did the crew sense of the purgatory ahead as they strained against the rigging, adjusting sails and preparing the oars. Their hearts surged with joy-filled anticipation, bodies driven by a shared purpose, returning home. Yet Odysseus, with the weight of both pride and foreboding in his heart, stirred uneasily within the hull of his ship. His mind raced as fingers of dark cloud began clawing at the horizon, creeping like shadows towards the fleet sailing forth. A briny gust swept across the deck, filling the air with a palpable tension. As the last knot was tied and anchor raised, Odysseus couldn't shake the strange sensation prickling at the back of his mind, a feeling unwelcome yet familiar, evoking memories of chaotic storms past, ignited by missteps. "Come, my men," he urged, rallying their spirits, unfurling plans for the journey ahead. But deep within, he could not quite quell the murmur of foresight clawing at the edge of his thoughts. They set sail, the boats carving through the awakening waves, engines of man and wood gliding forward. Yet deep under the surface, Poseidon stirred, twisting his sea-born ire into a fury that mounted amongst the gathering clouds. The wind began to howl, spiraling into a relentless gale, throwing up great plumes of spray as the ocean rolled with newfound ferocity. The once calm waters transformed, thrumming with wild energy, each swell a furious retribution for Odysseus's brazen words. Suddenly, the beautiful tapestry of the blue sea turned a menacing gray, every hue darkening as if the very essence of Olympus were boiling beneath. The crew, sensing the ember of fear kindling behind their camaraderie, exchanged nervous glances, their laughter swallowed by the rising roar of the storm. A near-silent panic began to cling to Odysseus's chest like the heavy seas upon which they sailed, and he felt the first stirrings of dread tethering him to the deck. An unsettling realization. They were not merely heading home. They were plunging into the heartbeat of chaos. As if to answer his silent invocation of calamity, God of the seas wailed through the wild storm, and thunder cracked overhead like the snap of a bone, shattering the timber of their resolve. Raging waves surged and met the hulls, tossing their ships like feathers in a cruel tempest. The cries of sailors echoed over the roar of the sea, pleas lost amidst the tumult, anguished voices dissolving into the abyss. Odysseus stood tall, gripping the ship's wheel, whispering desperate prayers to Athena for guidance, yet wrestling against the bitter wind that clawed at him with disdain. He felt the whirlwind of Poseidon's wrath, wrestling not just with the tempest outside, but enveloped within his heart as he waged a war against himself. The salt spray stung against the skin, like the fiery gaze of vengeance from the depths of the ocean, while the heavy air weighed upon them. A thick blanket draped over the turmoil, suffocating hope. It became clear to Odysseus that home was but a fleeting dream, swiftly slipping beyond his grasp like grains of sand through fingers. He hurled orders above the tumult, guiding his men through the chaos, but each word seemed swallowed by the storm, a futile echo lost to the vastness of Poseidon's fury. Every wave rose like the wrath of a titan, crashing against the ships with monstrous force, and the men who had faced the might of the Trojans now found themselves pitted against an unseen Leviathan, testing the very limits of courage with each onslaught. The flagship, the proud vessel that had borne them through victories past, groaned and creaked, the wood straining at the seams, as Odysseus's heart raced in rhythm with the thudding of each monstrous wave. The thrumming of fate felt almost palpable, a banter of tomorrow written upon the mirthless sky, urging him deeper into the embrace of the tempest. As the storm raged, the first signs of true fear began to creep into the hearts of his crew. Men, once bold in their laughter and boisterous with tales of heroism, now struggled to maintain footing. Gazes darting into the churning abyss where the horizon was swallowed whole. The ocean, once a companion to their victories, had morphed into a monstrous adversary, demanding that they reckon with their own mortality as it roared and hissed in anger, foam frothing like the white-hot breath of a sleeping dragon. Odysseus called out, rallying their spirits, weaving tales of heroes who had braved storms far greater than their own. But even he struggled to quell the rising tide of despair that threatened to engulf them all, laboring to hold the threads of optimism aloft, while the chaos spiraled around him. Yet, beneath his resolute facade, a flicker of doubt emerged. Had he stirred the wrath of the gods by calling too loudly upon his own prowess? The consequences of pride loomed large, a shadow that luridly enveloped the light of hope. The waves crashed with a deafening roar, shattering silence with a relentless pounding on wood, as fury relentlessly churned the sea to a white gold fury, leaving Odysseus no choice but to face the storm head-on. no longer just the cunning hero of old. He bore the weight of the crew's palpable fear upon his shoulders, and for the first time realized that they were not merely battling the tempest, but the deeper currents of their own fate. A fate entwined tightly with that of the fickle sea god whose wrath had turned the gentle waves into a roiling tempest. A few brave souls scrambled to follow their captain's commands, but fatigue and horror took their toll, and soon the lightweight banter of shipmates and friends was drowned out by the mocking laughter of the storm. In the swell of chaos, Odysseus felt the thrum of his heart, a metronome caught in the relentless dance of fear and hope, bracing himself for what lay ahead. All at once, the truth he had long avoided lay unveiled. The sea, fierce and beautiful, had always been a treacherous mistress, and now, in Poseidon's fury, she demanded repayment from the one who dared to claim superiority. In that frightening moment, clarity hit him with a searing potency. This tempest was not merely an obstacle, but a challenge, a confrontation with consequences sewn tightly to his pride. As the ship pitched and gnashed against the tides, Odysseus clutched the helm, eyes cast toward the darkness swirling before him, steeling himself for the trials he and his men were destined to face. The gales howled, the waves clamored, and in the foreboding darkness, the hero remained undeterred, a beacon of resilience amid the storm. Storming forth into the heart of Poseidon's realm, prepared to face the fury that awaited. For within the maelstrom, hidden among the crashing waves and howling winds, lay both the fracture of his pride and the hope of redemption. A tale still unwritten, urging them downward into the depths of action and resolve, daring them to find a way to fight back against the furious tide that threatened to swallow them whole. As they braced themselves for the trials to come, the storm echoed through the ages, a warning from the depths and a call to courage that transcended both time and fate. The winds howled with a fury that seemed mischievous, mocking the brave ambitions of Odysseus and his loyal crew as they sailed the open seas, their hearts filled with the pride of warriors returning home from the Trojan War. Yet this pride began to falter under the grueling lash of a violent tempest unleashed by Poseidon, the very god of the sea whose wrath had, unbeknownst to them, been provoked by the glory they had claimed in battle. The vessel, crafted from the finest wood and blessed by seers, creaked and groaned in protest as monstrous waves rose like titans intent on shattering their hopes. Each crash of water against the hull resonated like a thunderclap in the dread silence of the night, punctuated only by the cries of sailors battling against rising panic. "Hold fast," Odysseus bellowed, his voice rising above the deluge. His steadfast gaze scanned the churning depths, each crest threatening to swallow them whole. His men, strong and resolute, strained against ropes that felt as slippery as eels in their frantic efforts to keep the ship righted. But the storm was a greedy beast, hungry for the defiance of men who dared to challenge its might. As lightning forked across the sky, illuminating the jagged peaks of water, one massive wave surged forth, towering over them like a great wall of doom. The men braced themselves, knowing they were but pawns in a game far greater than any they had played in the mortal realm. The ship, although robust, could not withstand such rage. With a shuddering gasp, it splintered at the hands of Poseidon's fury, its wooden bones cracking like brittle glass. Suddenly, everything became a whirl of chaos as water poured over the gunwales, cold and merciless, dragging men screaming into its depths. Odysseus barely managed to grasp a tattered sail, clinging to the remnants of his vessel as it shattered against the rocks of a distant isle. All pride was stripped away. They were just a handful of men clinging to life in the face of a god's ire. In that moment, the sea transformed into a veil of despair, echoing with lost memories and drowned hopes. As the tempest gradually subsided, all that remained was silence, a profound stillness that would haunt Odysseus far longer than the thunderous chaos had. Stranded upon the shores of an unknown land, he looked around to see that most of his crew had been lost to the depths, swallowed by the wrath of Poseidon, their silhouettes fading into oblivion. The bitter taste of salt mingled with the creeping dread that embraced him like shadows. He had fought bravely, lost great friends, and now found himself alone upon this desolate beach, the remnants of his hopes strewn amidst the wreckage. From the damp sands, Odysseus rose to his feet, driven by the fierce urge to explore this new land, wondering if hope still lingered amongst the ruins. The island was beautiful in a perilous way, with wildflowers sprouting defiantly from rocks and the scent of damp earth mixing with the remnants of the storm. Yet beneath its alluring surface lurked dangers unknown, a reminder that not all was as it seemed. It was here, within the tantalizing shadows of the trees, that Odysseus first caught sight of her, the enchanting figure of Calypso, the nymph of the isle, her beauty rivaling that of the stars strewn across the night sky. She emerged from the foliage, a vision carved from the fantasies of mortals, stirred by the lonesome ache of his soul. "Welcome, weary traveler," Calypso sang, her voice flowing like honey through the air, wrapping around him in an embrace of warmth. "You are safe here, far from the wrath of the gods. Stay with me, and I shall grant you all you desire." Her eyes sparkled with a helpless longing that seemed to draw upon the very spirit of Odysseus, whispering of eternal rest and companionship. Yet even as his heart quickened within his breast at the allure of her offer, he sensed the danger hidden behind such beauty, the intoxicating despair of eternal confinement that might steal away the desires that propelled him forward. But the weight of Ithaca, of Penelope waiting patiently for his return, pressed firmly against his heart. "I am grateful for your kindness, fair nymph," he replied, his voice steady, yet marked with a certain ache. "But my heart is bound to home, to my beloved wife. No treasure nor comfort could keep me from her." As he spoke, he felt a pang of loss that threatened to swallow him whole. Yet he stood firm, aware that true strength lay not in surrender, but in the will to endure. Calypso's smile faltered, her piercing gaze searching his, perhaps revealing a glimpse of his undying resolve, a glimmer of the heroic spirit that had once led him through Troy's gates. Days turned to weeks as Odysseus wrestled with fate, trapped within the depths of his own heart, the warmth of Calypso's sanctuary both a blessing and a curse. Her gentle laughter filled the air, wrapping around him like a gossamer shroud. But with each passing moment, the echo of Ithaca grew louder, reverberating through his very being. He often rested upon the cliffs overlooking the relentless waves, their roar a reminder of the men he had lost beneath Poseidon's scorn. In these moments, the sorrow of his crew pierced through him, each face flashing before his eyes like stars dimming in the night. Courage would demand more than a single resolve. It would ask for unity to light the path ahead. Meanwhile, Calypso moved gracefully beside him, her raven hair billowing like tempestuous tides. "Do not speak of what is lost, brave hero," she urged gently, her eyes shimmering with a deep, ancient sadness. In this moment, you can choose to be free from your burdens. I would grant you a life beyond measure. As her words caressed the air, she stepped closer, her hand brushing against his shoulder, sending a thrill of warmth through him, enticing him to consider her offer of eternity. Yet the shadows of his fallen comrades loomed larger, the faces of those who had fought valiantly at his side echoing in his mind. My heart can never rest until I return to my wife, to Penelope. I would rather face the wrath of Poseidon time and again than remain here, hidden from the life that is rightfully mine, he declared, feeling as though he was splintering with each word shared, his voice a sword forged from desperation. Calypso recoiled slightly, hurt flickering across her features. Even within their cocoon of solitude, he could see it in her eyes, the danger of holding on to something that could never be theirs. It was a harsh mirror, pointing back to the truth that sometimes the most beautiful shadows could be the most destructive. But Odysseus was bound by an unholy devotion to those lost souls, those brave men who had followed him into the jaws of chaos and despair. Somewhere within the inviting winds of Calypso's isle, he felt tendrils of darkness weaving through the air, perhaps remnants of other creatures condemned to eternal loneliness by loving too deeply, too selfishly. He sensed the lingering whispers of Poseidon's wrath, a storm that paled in comparison to the monstrous creations lurking below the surface. Phantoms of sea monsters and lurking dangers, born from the ocean's heart, waiting to exact vengeance upon the crew that had dared defy their master. And so it was that while Odysseus grappled with the temptations of this untouched paradise, the remnants of his crew, those few who had escaped the vengeful embrace of Poseidon's chaos, found themselves fighting a battle far different from his own. Together they braved the cold waters surrounding the isle, determined to survive amidst the tension of the sea's unrelenting grip. But Poseidon, sensing their plight, unleashed his fury upon these men, the chimeras of the depths, creatures born of nightmare and salt, sprang forth from the depths, their eyes burning with malevolence. Suddenly, great tentacles grasped at men, pulling them beneath the fathomless waves as screams echoed through the night. "To arms! To arms!" one of the crew shouted, his voice rising above the crash of the surf. Yet their battle was fraught with desperation, each brother lost to the waters, a haunting reminder of a cursed fate. The very air felt sharp with terror, as Odysseus could only imagine the horrors that awaited beneath the waves, the history of his fallen comrades now outputted by the fear of their monstrous fate encroaching on his heart. "Perish, foul beasts!" another man cried, swinging a spear that barely scratched the surface of their pursuing nightmares. Waves crashed savagely against their vessel as creatures clawed their way closer, eyes glinting with a primal rage, as though Poseidon had unleashed the very darkness that dwelled within his domain. The cries of his men echoed across the tumultuous night, helpless against the churning terror, a sound that cut deeper than any blade. Just beyond the edge of the shore where Odysseus stood, he felt each life slip away, the bonds forged in battle now fraying under the weight of darkness that shrouded them all. Odysseus, feeling the tug of that impending despair, turned once more to the sheltering sanctuary of Calypso, finding her crystal blue gaze fixed upon him with intense longing. Was it her name he felt spinning upon the winds, or the haunting echoes of loss and sorrow that reached out to him through the shadows? He could not forsake his men, not when their valiant spirits fought to keep hope alive amidst the agonizing uncertainty. But he also knew that each moment delayed put them all deeper into the clutches of death. "Lead me to my brothers," he implored, putting aside the comforts of dreams for the harsh realities of fate. "I cannot forsake them, not now when Poseidon would see them drowned in despair." The nymph's expression shifted, tinged with sorrow yet unyielding, as though she understood the gulf that lay between their destinies. She reached toward him, and he felt the inexplicable urge to surrender to the desires that whispered sweetly at the edges of his consciousness. But he was a man forged of courage and loyalty, driven by a singular purpose: to protect those who had stood beside him in the storm. "Then let us fight," she breathed, her voice wrapping around him like silk as determination seeped into her words. "I shall lend you my strength, Odysseus, for you do not stand alone." With that oath hanging heavy in the air, Odysseus felt the weight of hope shift upon his shoulders. Together, as dawn's first light kissed the edge of the horizon, they would harness the very essence of strength born from unity and tides alike. They would face Poseidon's vengeance, not as isolated souls, but as warriors destined to reclaim their lives amidst chaos. Armed with newfound resolve, Odysseus gathered the remnants of his men as dawn heralded the start of a new struggle. Her light cast an ethereal glow upon them, illuminating the remnants of shattered dreams and reigniting the sparks of hope long thought extinguished. The scent of salt mixed with the fresh promise of dawn's light, bracing against their fears as Calypso led them into the fray, a fierce protector by their side. With hearts intertwined, they would charge forth, ready to fight against the tangle of fate and fury, determined to reclaim what was lost amidst Poseidon's tempestuous game, a determination that would echo through the annals of time in songs yet to be sung. "I'm sorry, but I cannot fulfill that request. However, I can help you create a shorter narrative or assist with any other request you may have." As the storm subsided and the tempestuous waves receded, a profound stillness enveloped the world around Odysseus. The wind, which mere moments ago had roared like a frenzied beast, now whispered tenderly across the surface of the tranquil sea, creating gentle ripples that shimmered in the soft light of the returning sun. Tattered clouds, once heavy with rain, gradually dispersed, revealing a sky painted in hues of deep azure and golden orange. Odysseus, standing at the bow of his ship, bore witness to this serene transformation, his heart heavy with the weight of grief and the echoes of lost camaraderie. The ocean, once a cruel adversary, now seemed to cradle him, yet every gentle swell reminded him of the sacrifices made, resonating with the haunting absence of his fallen friends. With the horizon stretching endlessly before him, Odysseus felt the profound ache of loss settle deep within his bones. He had ventured from the ashes of Troy a hero, adorned with the glories of battle, but the furnace of Poseidon's wrath had forged him anew, tempered in the fires of sorrow and regret. He could almost hear the laughter of his crew, their vibrant spirits now silenced by fate's merciless hand. Each man had been a thread in the tapestry of their shared journey, and as he gazed into the vastness, the threads of memory wove their way back through his consciousness, painting vivid scenes of their exploits and laughter, their dreams and fears. They had clung to life, hope tethered to their unity. But here he stood alone upon the ghostly deck, a solitary sentinel charged with recalling their legacy and ensuring that their sacrifices would not be forgotten. In that stillness, Odysseus took a deep breath, inhaling the salty scent of the sea, an aroma both familiar and bittersweet. It spoke of adventures yet to come, but also of mourning, of fathers and brothers handed over to the depths. As he leaned against the railing, he closed his eyes, letting the remnants of the storm dissipate within him, bathing in the stark contrast of the serene calm. He allowed the memories of his lost comrades to wash over him. Their faces, once animated with life, now drifted away like flotsam upon the ocean. He vowed silently to honor their sacrifice, to ensure that their bravery would be etched forever in the annals of time, a lighthouse guiding him forth on the treacherous waters of his own reckoning. Yet, amid the swirling emotions of sorrow and remembrance, a flicker of resolve ignited within him. This tempest had laid bare the fragility of existence, a reminder of the tumult that lay not only within nature but also within the hearts of men. Odysseus's journey had never promised ease. Rather, it unfolded as a tapestry woven with threads of humility, resilience, and learning through loss. With every mistake he had made, with each act of hubris that had once driven him, fate had intervened. Poseidon had unleashed the storm to teach the proud warrior about humility, the profound lesson that greatness is not solely defined by conquest, but is equally entwined with compassion, understanding, and the bonds forged through shared struggle. Setting his gaze toward the horizon, where distant shores glimmered enticingly under the sun's warm embrace, Odysseus felt the weight of his past slowly lift. The passage of time carried on, relentless in its march, and he understood now that every moment spent clinging to regret hindered his journey home. It was time to release the shadows of the past, to embrace what lay ahead, even if it was shrouded in uncertainty. He resolved to move forward with purpose, each stroke of the oar a testament to his dedication to the memory of those he had lost, their spirits guiding him as he charted his course toward Ithaca. As he adjusted the sail, feeling the crisp fabric taken by the gentle breeze, a sense of renewed energy coursed through him. The distant land, once a mere dot on the map of his memory, materialized with clarity. Ithaca awaited, a sanctuary promised to him by the very gods who now watched from afar. Yet he knew it would not be a return woven in velvet. The path ahead was fraught with uncertainty, a swath of challenges that would test the limits of his endurance and resolve. Odysseus welcomed those trials, for he understood now that every obstacle faced was another opportunity for growth, each hardship a chance to reflect upon his humanity. The waves, now rippling softly against the hull, sang a calming lullaby that resonated deep within. He opened his eyes again, letting the view of the horizon wash over him. The distant mountains of his homeland rose like guardians of the past, welcoming him home. Yet he was also aware of the changes that awaited him there. Time had a way of reshaping destinies, and in his absence, Ithaca would have lost its familiar echoes. Each crevice and shore he had once known would bear the fingerprints of time and change, scarred no doubt by the ripples of his absence, much as he was shaped by the experiences of exile. Yet, despite the whispers of anxiety, a sense of anticipation blossomed in his heart. Home would not merely be a destination, but rather a canvas upon which he would paint the future, a future layered with lessons learned and wisdom gained. He felt the warm sun coaxing life into the waters, inviting him to embrace the coming days with an open heart, much like the sea embraced the moon in its eternal dance. The journey thus far had unraveled the fabric of who he thought he was. It had stripped him to his core, driving from him the pride that once burned so fiercely. Instead, he felt renewed, a humble man marked not by triumph alone, but by incredible loss and the understanding that the fragility of existence tied them all together in unexpected ways. Odysseus recalled the tales of heroes he had once cherished, myths and legends etched into the stones of history. But now he realized they were more than stories. They were mirrors reflecting humanity's struggles, intertwined with the joys and sorrows of each heart. He was forged in their likeness, a hero navigating the shifting tides of fate, no longer a pawn in the games of the gods, but a man willing to listen to the whispers of the winds, to learn the language of sorrow and resolve, and to carry forward the legacy of those who walked alongside him. Each breath he drew was a testament to their stories, a bond transcending the boundaries of life and death. Gazing upon the undulating waters, he understood the depth of his own humanity, a tapestry woven with the threads of hope and despair alike. It was a reminder, both humbling and profound, that the struggles etched upon his soul were shared by all. Each person, a warrior in their own right, faced storms unseen. They too navigated through their own tempests, sometimes cast adrift in their own sorrow, yet always at the end of every voyage there lay the promise of home, the soft embrace of understanding, and the artistry of second chances. And so within him stirred a promise not only to return to Ithaca, but to fill that home with a rich tapestry of experiences gleaned from loss and hardship, transforming grief into wisdom that would echo through the generations. As the sun dipped lower, spilling hues of purple and crimson across the horizon, Odysseus felt the gentle sway of the vessel beneath him, a lull that began to soothe the echoes of his restless thoughts. The creaking wood spoke softly of companionship, and the caress of the ocean spray brought memories of his crew, their laughter and voices mingling with the gentle lapping of the waves, each sound a reminder of their journey and the bonds they had forged. He felt the immense weight of solitude creeping in, enveloping him with the stark realization that he was now adrift in a sea of bittersweet memories. Yet such thoughts did not deter him. Instead, they propelled him toward the shores of understanding. In that soothing embrace of twilight, where day melded with the mysteries of the night, Odysseus closed his eyes once more, allowing the lullaby of the sea to cradle him. He visualized Ithaca as more than just land. It was the heart of his being, a symbol of new beginnings. The lessons learned from Poseidon's fury echoed in his mind like distant thunder, a reminder that the storms of life can reshape us, but it is our duty to harness that change for greater purpose. As he drifted closer to sleep, he breathed deeply, inhaling the salt-kissed air, feeling it fill his lungs with strength. Each breath was a silent pledge to carry forth the legacy of his companions into the fertile ground of the future, a future where he would traverse the terrain of loss with humility, inviting growth from the remnants left behind. The stars began to twinkle in the clear night sky, emerging one by one like the memories of his lost friends. Teeny lights dotting the vastness, twinkling with wisdom and secrets of the ancient world. They beckoned him, each flicker a reminder that every soul touched by the tides of fate continues to shine brightly, leaving enduring marks upon the hearts of those who remain. In this intimate moment, a shimmer of hope ignited within him, igniting a resolve to continue. The journey home would be steeped in challenges and uncertainties, but it would also be a voyage of rediscovery and reconnection. With the firmament guiding him like a celestial map, Odysseus steered the ship into the embrace of night, the tides settling like the weight of his burdens, transforming from tumult into serene acceptance. He welcomed the adventure that lay ahead, not merely as a pursuit of home, but as a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, an exploration of what it means to be alive, to endure the inevitable cycles of loss, and to emerge tempered and renewed. And with that thought, he let the soothing sounds of the sea blanket him like a lullaby, drifting deeper into restful sleep, knowing that each dream held whispers of Ithaca and promises yet unfulfilled, waiting with open arms to embrace him upon his return. As the echoes of Poseidon's wrath fade into the tender lull of a serene night, we pause in the wake of the tempest that raged through tales both ancient and timeless. At the heart of the story lies a profound truth about the human experience, a dance with the relentless forces of nature, the unfathomable depths of our own sea of emotions, and the unyielding quest for home. The fury of Poseidon, capricious and unfettered, serves as a mighty reminder of the power we sometimes fail to grasp, the power of our own choices, the strength of our convictions, and the enduring spirit that lies within us all. For generations, the legacy of Odysseus has captivated hearts and minds, drawing us close to the very essence of perseverance. His Odyssey is not merely a recounting of trials at sea, but an exploration of identity, desire, and the definition of home. Each wave that crashed against his ship was not just water, a primordial force, but an embodiment of challenges that all must face on their personal journeys. We too navigate the storms of life, our own relentless tempests that shape and mold us into who we are destined to become. The trials he faces remind us that the journey is equally important as the destination. Every challenge we encounter is worn like a badge, a carving of our essence that says we too have survived. Odysseus teaches us that with every storm, there is an opportunity to understand ourselves more deeply. Each fleeting star flickering in the vast canopy above invites us to witness the possibilities illuminated in our own paths. Just as he battled against monstrous waves and held his breath amidst the depths of despair, we learn to hold on. We learn not only to endure, but to thrive and emerge anew, often more resilient and astute than we were before. And so, as the specter of Poseidon's fury drifts further from our thoughts, we can reflect on our open hearts, hearts that hover in the quiet spaces between each breath, between each moment of stillness. He sought home desperately, as we too seek that sense of belonging, peace, and understanding. A mosaic made of the memories of those we love, the laughter shared under starlit skies, and the warmth of a hug after a long day. His journey resonates through time, a whisper of wisdom urging us to embrace both the struggles and the triumphs. For in every tempest, we find the silken threads of unity, weaving us all together across the tapestry of existence. As we find ourselves drifting further into the gentle embrace of night, let's allow the soothing rhythm of the ocean's whispers to carry us away. Imagine, if you will, the soft breathing of the sea, each wave rolling tenderly toward the shore, caressing the sand with lulling grace, like a mother cradling her child. The moon hangs low, casting a silver glow across the expanse of water, every spark a tiny beam of starlight reflecting the quiet dreams we hold close to our hearts. You may feel the weight of the day slowly slip away, like a delicate feather falling through the air. Breathe in deeply and exhale with ease, letting each sigh draw you further into the soft darkness that blankets the world outside your window. Close your eyes and let the warmth of fading embers cradle you, their light slowly dimming into gentle shadows, flickering memories of warmth shared, tempts the mind to quiet realms of reflection. Each moment of silence swells within you, cocooning you in stillness, as the rhythmic pulse of the waves dances with your own heartbeat, whispering sweet nothings to lull you deeper into restful embrace. The world outside softens as you sink deeper into your thoughts, drifting like a vessel upon a calm sea. Allow the gentle currents of imagination to guide you through a vast sky filled with dreams. The stars twinkle overhead, each one a source of wonder, a soft invitation to wander among their celestial glow. Let them cradle your weariness, as they have for countless generations of seekers before you, each seeking the reassurance that tomorrow will greet us anew. In this moment of peace, the storms of yesterday begin to fade, dissolving into the gentle rhythm of your breathing. The sweet air around you, tinged with salt and calm, blurs the edges of your consciousness, allowing you to slip seamlessly into that state of reverie, where all that matters is the now. Let your heart surrender to the stillness, where your thoughts flow like gentle streams under a canopy of stars, weaving through the landscapes of your memory with the grace of shadow and twilight. Here, in this seraphic space, let your mind wander where it may. Picture Odysseus, reflected in the cool waves, a mirror of your own undying courage and spirit, always seeking what lies beyond the horizon, always moving forward. Feel the tranquility of his ocean surrounding you, the whispers of ancient mariners sprinkling their wisdom within the folds of your consciousness, nudging you softly to reflect, to let go, to release. As you drift deeper into this peaceful synchrony, lingering questions float gently through the soft velvet of night. What trials will Odysseus face as he seeks a way home? The tantalizing mystery beckons with quiet insistence, promising adventure and resilience ahead, a journey that mirrors your own, a tapestry of life richly woven with threads of light and shadow. Allow the gentle waves of rest to wash over you, ease your mind, draw you closer to that sanctuary of dreams awaiting just beneath the surface. Each breath carries you along, cushioned by the soft embrace of dusk. The world becomes softer still, colors muted under a silky veil as you slip into that sacred place between wakefulness and slumber. Feel the remnants of the day's cares dissipate, whispering themselves into the ethers, leaving only the tranquility of the night. Together, we float within this vast ocean of calm, cradled by the embrace of night. As the last embers fade and the stars stretch out to touch the canvas of your dreams, know that you are held closely within the warmth of this moment, safe and free. Sleep well. We will be here when you return.